I don't know. I saw that as well. I'll take this off actually. Hello and welcome to the show. Today I am joined by Nathan Brown from the MoodSwings Podcast.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm all right. I'm a bit bedraggled from the unfortunate walk where I got your address wrong and scared some poor man.
Man, you're not the first, honestly. It's a long line of people that can't find my house.
I feel like at least everyone else is looking for the right place.
Yeah, they've got it in the right place. But yeah, they never get here eventually.
Even when you said 42, I was like, he must have said 47 before by mistake. I went through the message. No, he said 42. Just misread it.
Well, I thought I'd said 47, so I was like, oh, you've taken me too literally. And it's with the street as well, because there's Brunswick Street, and I don't want to give this away, but the road that's called something else that I live on, they're the same name, obviously, but with different endings.
Yeah. It was, I mean, if it was all going fine until...
And thanks for traversing half of Scotland to get here.
It's fine.
You come from, is it Aberdeen?
Yeah, Aberdeen.
Right. That's some trek on the train. How long is that?
2.5 hours, I think,
Wow.
was to do. It was a London train as well, so it was absolutely rammed.
So full of Londoners, would-be Londoners. Aberdonians want to be Londoners.
There's a few of those, yeah.
Yeah, no, like I used to love Aberdeen. Like, I'm sure I know you from like, are you involved in the band scene in Aberdeen at any point?
Yeah, I was for a couple of years
Yeah,
back in the day, yeah.
I think I remember your face actually. Just when I saw you doing your podcast, I remember seeing your face from back in the day actually. But like Drummond's and all that, was that when you were?
Yeah, I think I remember speaking to you outside tunnels.
Okay,
I think I remember that.
I think that's making sense now. How long ago was this then?
Ooh. I think in 2009, because I remember the first time I went on tour with my pal's band was 2009.
Who was it?
A band called Marionettes.
Right, okay.
So it would have been 2009 or 2010, because they toured quite a lot
Right.
over those 2 years. And it was definitely the first night. If it's the night I would think of that I was speaking to you, it was the first night of the tour, because I remember Flood of Red were playing in Tunnel 2.
Right.
My pal's band were playing in Tunnel 1.
Okay.
And I was just sort of drifting between the two venues.
That was a good venue, man. Like the tunnels, is it still around?
Yeah, it's still there, but so there was like a couple of nightclubs in Aberdeen that did all the sort of the dance music stuff, and the two main ones both shut down at a sort of around that time, and Tunnels pretty much just captured that market. Like they've pretty much got perfect space for it. It's sort of underground, it's central, but it's out of the way.
Yeah.
So they still do gigs, but it's very much that curfew's 10 o'clock, so we can get this club night started at 11.
That's crazy. I mean, Aberdeen used to be gig central.
Yeah.
I mean, everyone that went on tour, their first stop was always Inverness or Aberdeen. You know, that was your and make your way down the UK from there. But I've heard people talking about the sort of there's no more of a band scene anymore. Is that something?
It's not what it was, no.
Yeah. Because at that time it was just intense. Like everyone from Glasgow, Perth. There was a lot of people from Perth that used to come through Dundee as well.
Yeah.
Like that was a huge time for music in Scotland at that point.
Yeah, it was big. And then there was sort of a bit of a resurgence a couple of years ago where there was like a sort of mini grunge scene that went right through, I suppose, the whole of Scotland. But it was definitely Aberdeen was a big part of it. Like sort of bands like Panact and there's a band called Catholic Action.
Right.
And all these bands are still on the go, but it's all gone sort of just Glasgow and probably Edinburgh based as well. Aberdeen still gets the odd gig, but not. There used to be bands on from all over the country, like every Friday night. I used to do sound in a venue there.
Right.
And you used to see all sorts coming up. It's
Is
great.
Drummond still around? Like that was the venue for when we were playing.
It still does gigs. It's the same owners as Tunnels, but they are now. A brewery is involved in some sort.
Okay.
So most of their gigs are non-ticketed and are free.
Right.
To try and just get punters in so that
Yeah.
they can sell more booze. So it's a lot of like acoustic nights and open mic
It's
nights.
not Tenants by any chance, is it?
It could be. I have no idea. I don't want to know.
Or the lovely drink that we're drinking just now.
It's definitely not them. But they
Cheers, anyway.
Cheers, yeah. They own everything else. They opened another one last week, I think, in the shopping centre in Aberdeen.
Right. Who the band that the brewery that's at the Drummonds or
No,
the Brewdog?
Brewdog, yeah.
Oh no way! They must be just dominating Aberdeen because that's where they come from.
Yeah.
Is it? Yeah.
Ellen, so it's just outside Aberdeen.
Okay.
So it's 3 bars they've all got in central Aberdeen now.
That's the home, the mecca.
Yeah.
Some people don't like them either. There's a lot of like people who really love their beer, especially IPAs and craft beer, and I can sense it down here in Edinburgh. And people just are completely in the huff with Brewdog for some of the stuff that they've done. You know.
Yeah, and I don't know, they've made a couple of marketing errors. I don't know if you saw Pink IPA. Were you aware of that? They tried to do like it's just Punk IPA, but they tried to do like a version for like they literally tried to do a version for girls and called it Pink IPA.
Ooh.
And this was only either earlier this year or
Wow.
last year, and it's just.
Do you think they're trying to capitalize on the sort of the political sort of societal climate? You know,
Maybe, but they totally put their foot in it there. I don't know.
It's too obvious when you do something like that.
Yeah.
You know, it's like making the all-female Ghostbusters movie. You know, it's that kind of like just trying to capitalize on feminism and all that type of thing, which is not.
I think with the Pink IPA as well, it was just kind of seemed like, well, why can't girls just have Punk IPA? Why do you have to make a special one in a pink bottle? It's like, yeah.
And was there not something about they sued someone recently as well for like a name or something? Might have been there's someone, I think they sued someone with the name Brewdog. Oh, sorry. My own podcast, and I have my own ringer on my phone. I apologise to everyone.
Okay. There's a podcast that's based in Essex, and every episode the guy's phone goes off. So I'm used to it.
So yeah, bringing it back to the music scene in Aberdeen. Drummonds was always our port of call when I was in a band, and the sound was just unbelievable there. They had it. I don't know who was on the desk at that time, but they were just nailing it with the sound.
Yeah, it used to be really good in there. There was an engineer, Callum, who probably would have been around that time, who would have been between Drummonds and Tunnels.
Right.
And you always knew you were in for a good night if you had him on the desk.
Yeah.
Although, I mean, he's not going to hear this. So infamously, one night he got called in when he wasn't on shift, and he'd been getting pished all day. And they said, like, the sound guy pulled out, could he come in? And he's like, well, I can, but I'm intoxicated. And he went in to do his shift, and the sound was terrible. And it was quite a big gig. It was.
Yeah. Do
you remember Yashin?
Yeah.
They were playing.
Wow.
And the band complained and all this, and it wasn't obviously his fault. Yeah. He had a day off, but the venue tried to sort of hang him out to dry for it.
Really?
I think so. I don't know the ins and outs.
I know.
But this is what I hear, or what I heard. It's a long time ago now.
It's probably he was supposed to be working that day, and he was extremely drunk or hungover, and then he was blaming on the. Not that he would. I'm just
could be the case.
Playing devil's advocate here.
But the story I heard anyway was that he had a day off and he got called in last minute. The next time I saw him do a gig, he was drinking an orange juice.
He's on his like last warning, probably.
Maybe.
Yeah. That one firmly sticks in my mind. For good venues, the Balcony in Dundee. Don't know if you ever.
I never went. No, the venue I was familiar with in Dundee was Dexter's.
Right. Yeah. The sound was amazing there.
Yeah.
But for just being legendary and sort of intimate was the big one. With the Balcony and some amazing bands. I mean, I seen DeSalvo in there. Have you heard of them?
I've heard of them. Yeah.
Amazing. The guitarist from what are they called? It's a Scottish band, indie band. Like, not
The View.
No. Good music. Not The View. I've got a story about that actually. I can't remember what they're called, but anyway, he's the guitarist from a very famous indie band, and he's in this sort of like heavy, like metal band, and they're just phenomenal. It's the frontman's this massive gay guy, and he wears like butcher's pennies, but like leather ones.
Okay.
And he has like a pig's nose on his face the whole time, and he's singing through like a megaphone. So you always get these idiots that stroll in off the street in Dundee to gigs, and obviously when they see that, they're just like him. He goes directly up to them and just starts screaming in their face. Then they're a bunch of like Neds or something, and he's just like so like in your face, and it's just some of the best gigs ever. I saw played with Allergo a few times there.
Yeah.
Because I went to college in Perth, so I came up through the Perth scene.
Yeah.
Although I'm not from there.
Well, probably for the best. I went to college in Perth as well for a year.
Did you?
Yeah, I did sound production at Perth.
What year?
I don't know.
Is it pre-2009?
Possibly.
Okay.
I'm trying to think.
Because I was there 2004 to 5, I think. I did the music course.
I'm just trying to. I'm 27 now. I turned 18 that year. So
Okay.
yeah, 9 years ago. So it probably would be about 2009.
Okay. Yeah, I think I did do the sound engineering course after a few years at music, but I was like, I can't be. I don't want to come back to this.
No.
Nah, I was doing it just to stay in college. It's because I didn't want to work, basically at that point. So I was just like, I'll do sound engineering, but
yeah,
it wasn't what I was passionate about.
I don't know if I ever was either. To be fair, it would just seem like the thing to do if you love. Like, I love music, and I didn't really feel like I wanted to. I didn't think I'd be any good at studying it. I didn't really enjoy music at school that much. So the natural thing to do was go to sound production, because it seemed like, if I don't make it in music, then surely I'll be able to make it in sound production, which sadly is not the case. It's pretty much just as difficult these days, I think, to do anything in music.
Well, my thinking is because I grew up with music. I came from a really small primary school where there's 35 people in the whole primary school. It's like a tiny village.
Yeah.
And I was always the best at music. And going to high school, I was always just acing all the tests without doing anything, without even studying, because I got private tuition doing the fiddle and whatever my whole life. And I sacked all that. So when I went to college, I thought it was just going to be a breeze.
Yeah.
Was
it?
No. I just thought I could ride off the coattails of my youth.
Yeah.
My youth, obviously.
Yeah. I see. When I went to do my sort of standard grade or my higher music exam for second instrument, I thought I could just do bass.
Yeah.
Because I played guitar and I didn't even rehearse it properly. Like, I think I played it once along with the backing track just before I went in, and I was like, this will be fine.
Well, for the interview for the music course, you have to play a song.
Okay.
And I I chose Crazy Train by Ozzy Osbourne, because I was obsessed with Ozzy at this point. And I got the backing track from Total Guitar or something like that, and it was just fuck knows how I managed to do this, but I scratched the CD the day of my on the way to my my audition. So when I get there, it's like it's making all these funny noises, and I was like, right. And it's probably at the height of my arrogance in my youth, and I was like, fuck it, I don't care. And I just like shredded right in front of this guy's face, like leg up on the fucking the table, and was go for it. And then it was all downhill from there for me in my life.
Was that Crazy Train? That was Randy Rhoads, was it?
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's an impressive level of guitar to play at.
Well, the thing that threw me when it was, Lorenz Cairns.
No.
He was like the head of the music program, but he has famously did the bass line on This Morning.
Okay.
The daytime television show. Yeah. That's his only claim to fame.
It's a good one.
Mysteriously changed his name to Lorenz Cairns. I don't know why. Maybe he was involved in something, but it was extremely sort of weird. Always talking about like phenom ladders. Do you know what a phenom ladder is?
No.
It's where you get the length of your penis like pierced. So it's like a ladder. Like he said, he got that in Prince Albert. But you've saying it to me and all the other people in the course. He was a strange guy.
That's bizarre.
So his claim to fame was playing bass on This Morning. And yeah, so he was like, the day of my interview, he was like, so what are you playing? I was like, Crazy Train, just assuming everyone in the world knows Crazy Train. And he's like, by who? And I was like, I was so annoyed. I was like, who the fuck do you think? Ozzy Osbourne.
I mean,
But you're always like, everyone's so arrogant at that age, 18. Like, I look back on that and I was like, what? I mean, we're all just filled with hormones at that point. But just this sort of sheer arrogance of me at that age is just, I can't fathom it anymore.
I remember someone in the pub telling me that at that age, it was my cousin's friend who's older, said I was really arrogant. And I was like, what do you mean? And then they said in 5 or 10 years' time, you'll look back and like you'll realize what I mean. And I suppose I do now. Yeah, everyone's got a bit of arrogance around them. But then, as you say, everyone's like it's harder to see it in yourself if everyone around you is.
Do you think it's just you're in your physical prime, I guess, or it's just when you're so full of hormones and strutting around and you're, everything's going on in your body and you're just a complete mess? And do you think it's just a reaction to that, or is it just something like, I don't know, it's just...
I think at 18 everything's new, is it? Like you just got introduced to going
out
and everything that comes with that, and I think it's just...
But do you think like hunter-gatherers went through that phase as well? Like you're not going out every night on the lash when you're a teenage hunter-gatherer.
But then I suppose you're coming into your some sort of like social prime, I guess. Like I don't know.
Physical.
Physical. But then also like so I think it's a social aspect as well. So you become like at the point where you're, I suppose, no longer a kid and you start to get that responsibility. Or maybe like in hunter-gatherer times you'd start like hunting, I guess, however, and perhaps gathering as well.
I think the ladies did the gathering.
I don't know. I have no idea.
They all did it. I'm just kidding. I don't want any.
But yeah, I think it must be probably a mixture of things.
It's just so weird. Like you're this virile antenna of testosterone at that point, and everyone can see it, and you can't. You just think this is normality for everyone.
I've seen Fightclub so many times and continue to think that it's just adverts on the telly that made me act like that.
Probably. Yeah, it's all the X-Men that you watch up until that point.
Probably.
So are you, like, I see your posts on Instagram a lot. Well, there's 2 points to this, actually. The first one is you do a lot of sort of vegetarian and vegan stuff. Are you vegan yourself?
I'm veggie. I'm not vegan.
Okay. How did you get started with this?
Netflix, really. Just started watching documentaries on Netflix. What was the first one I watched? Was it Food Inc?
Yeah.
And it just showed it was the first time I'd ever seen like factory farming or like anything to do with that. And I watched it, kept eating meat, and then started to feel really guilty. And around this time as well, I think was a lot of people started to go vegetarian in my social circle, and it was becoming something of a fashionable choice, I suppose you could.
It's like the new straight edge.
Yeah.
Remember when when we were, up and coming in the music scene, everyone in their grand was straight edge at that point.
I'm sure a lot of them regret those straight edge tattoos because it's the same faces I saw in that scene in Aberdeen that I see now drinking in those bars. But yeah,
you should just pull them up and be like, "Oh, have you not got a straight edge tattoo?"
I don't want to do that. They probably had it removed. I look like the fool. They've probably got a vegan tattoo now.
Right, okay.
Plus, I don't know any of them by name, so I'd have to just go and go, "Oh, you."
Here, you straight edge cunt. I could probably name them.
Probably. But yeah, I watched Food Inc. and then kept eating meat. Started to feel guilty, and then started to feel kind of aggravated at myself for feeling guilty about it. It's just kind of like, if you eat meat your whole life, like, don't be so ridiculous. Like, to let a TV show or a movie upset you.
Because they are quite emotive shows.
Yeah.
They're designed so that you do feel some sort of emotion, which is not bad.
Point,
you've got to be made aware of these things through the vehicle of emotion.
But then I just stopped. I was like, I'm just going to stop eating meat until I feel better, until I get over this.
Right.
And I did, and then I just never ever felt the urge to go back to being.
How long ago was this?
A good 5 years now.
Wow. Yeah. You never felt the urge to go full on vegan? Or is it too much of a clique for you?
No, I just think I'm too lazy for it. I think it's a lot more. I think it's getting easier and easier, and certainly, and it's becoming more of a sustainable diet than it was. I think a couple of years ago, you really, really had to do your research, and it was really a bit of a struggle. But as it becomes more mainstream, it gets easier.
It depends what angle you come at it as well. If it's to sort of have no impact and sort of in the moral aspect of it, we know veganism is not free from those things. You know, there are downsides to that when you're farming on those scales. It doesn't even have to be meat, you know, just anything. You know, it's going to have an impact. But if you're trying to do your best, that's all you can do, and no one can say otherwise to you. You know, you just try and eat. But when we put labels on people, that's when you feel like you're caught within this label and you can't move either way. You know, you can't be like, well, I'm just going to eat local today or whatever, you know, this week, and I'll eat some meat. But 90% of the time you might eat vegan.
Yeah, I don't know. I think I get frustrated enough when people tell me what I can and can't have when I'm vegetarian, which is one of the most frustrating things in the world. I used to work with a girl who claimed she'd been vegetarian for a period before, but she was now no longer vegetarian. Okay. And everything I ate, she used to question, can you have that? Can you have that? And then one day I snapped because I was like tucking into a Twix. And she said, can you have that? And I was like, it's a fucking Twix. Like, honestly, what do you think's in this?
Is she just against the wrapper or something, maybe? Or
no, I think some people are just very not against vegetarianism, but I think a lot of people like to call when they know.
People take pride in sort of calling out people on something that they perceive as maybe not vegetarian or vegan.
Yeah, that's a struggle. And that's like, I've always said as well to people when people ask me, do you not have the urge to go back to eating meat? And I just tell people straight up that I've not got like some amazing willpower where every day is a struggle not to. If I really, really wanted to do it, I would. I'm not pig-headed enough to think that. I mean, that was an unfortunate pun there, pig-headed, but no. I'm not so arrogant as to think that I've got some mad self-control. It's just that I honestly didn't. After I went vegetarian, I felt no need to go back to eating meat. And then in terms of going vegan, it would require more legwork.
It's always the strange thing that people are trying to find alternatives to meat. Like, you know, it's like, I just find that a bit weird.
Yeah,
but I guess
I still do.
I guess it helps with the transition. You know, you don't want to lose out on things, but still at the same time, it's like you're just trying to. Your mind is still in this meat space, but you're trying to find it. You know, replacements for it. Yeah. And when there's a whole bunch of things you could be eating. You know, but I do the same as well. Like my ex-girlfriend, she was vegan, so I ate vegetarian for like a couple of years. The vegan side of it, like you say, was so hard to maintain. You have to be cooking all the time. And you know, she had a passion for cooking, so she loved to make what she needed. But at that time, I was just like, I was training and fighting, so I was just like, I need stuff that is fuel. Yeah, 100%.
And I love cooking as well. And like even in I'm not vegan, but in the flat, my girlfriend's vegetarian as well. But we don't have like any or very rarely do we having like cow's milk.
It's one thing I don't want to partake in is milk. Yeah. You know, even still to this day, I don't drink milk at all.
I've never liked milk, like not as a moral thing, but just like even when I was a kid, I was even having it on cereal. Like how a lot of kids would have their cereal, then there'd be milk at the bottom of the bowl.
I hated that.
Yeah, I would never drink.
I hated drinking that. It was like, that is so weird. Yeah. And if I would down milk, this is how strange a kid I probably was. When I was downing milk at the carton, just because it was normal to do this, and I was always weirded out thinking that something was going to touch my lips, like something from the cow, you know, like
a snout,
or like, I don't know, like pus or something.
Yeah, well, they do say that it's got a lot of pus in it, apparently, but yeah.
It's a strange part of the farming industry. Milk.
I wonder how, well, there probably is an answer to this, but how people first thought to consume milk.
I mean, I've said this argument a bunch of times myself, but I've said, it's weird that you drink milk from another species, but you also eat other species as well. You know, but at the same time, there are lines, like two things can be bad, but they don't have to be equally bad. So yeah, it's never done anything for me to drink milk. Like I drink coffee without anything in it. And I tried almond milk and all that. It goes like, It goes like jizz in the cup. Have you ever like tried coffee with almond milk?
I don't drink any like coffee or
Right.
tea. I just
Okay.
I don't like hot drinks. But like what you were saying with milk, like I just feel like something's just feels weird for me to drink something hot.
I think you're a bit of a caveman.
Yeah, maybe. But no.
Do you take showers?
Yeah, I do take showers, but I only take hot showers. I don't only drink.
Is that where you
things
get
I
all your
go-
hot drinks from?
Yeah, maybe.
You do it in a 1 hour every morning.
Do you know, I once drank. The story comes out every time someone asks me about hot drinks. I have to tell a story. I once drank vodka and gravy.
In what order? Like-
Well, like mixed together. Went
What's the backstory?
you know, Download Festival.
Yeah.
So I just was. I think I was on my way to see Aerosmith.
Okay.
It had been
First
What?
mistake.
well.
I'm kidding.
I know. I mean, I could tell the whole story. Like, it was
Okay.
glorious sunshine the whole weekend, and then Dillinger Escape Plan came on and ruined it all.
Was this in Donington?
Yeah.
Or okay,
And
because they did it 1 year in Glasgow. That's the one I went to
Okay.
on
Oh, yeah.
Gig on the Green. Was it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember Metallica played that.
Yeah.
I didn't go, but
Slipknot as well.
yeah, I really wanted to go
Amazing.
that year.
Yeah.
But yeah, Dillinger Escape Plan came on, rained
Wow.
like fuck, which was quite cool for their set. But
Yeah.
afterwards, because everyone's in like summer clothes, because it been glorious sunshine the whole weekend, it pissed down. Everyone went back to their tents. It was so raining that I had like, this is going back a bit, but I had a mobile phone and it was completely written off just by the rain from being in my jeans. Like, that's how bad the rain was. It was torrential. And then everyone went back to their tents and was sort of like just bitching about Aerosmith. Everyone's like, I fucking hate Aerosmith. No way am I going to see Aerosmith in this pissy weather. And then after about 10 minutes in our tents with like nothing to do, it's like, should we just suck it up and go back? So yeah, we started walking in and I was like absolutely drenched, like freezing, and I just was like, I really want a hot drink. Somebody's like, we'll go get a cup of tea or coffee. I was like, I don't like hot drinks, but I just want something like warm and alcoholic. And they're like what? And I was like, just like vodka and gravy or something. And then obviously we didn't have the tools at the time to make it, but we went home, and then the next weekend we
You had
found
vodka and
ourselves,
gravy.
yeah, in the kitchen with a Pyrex jug and a bottle of Glens.
Now, is this gravy that sort of like goes on your Christmas dinner or a Sunday roast, like thin, or was it stodgy?
We made it was quite thick. I mean, the vodka thinned out a bit, but they sort of separated as well.
Oh,
so,
see, there's layers to your sadness when you're drinking it.
I think I've only drank it twice.
Why would you drink it again?
A second time. I mean, I threw up the first time. So
What, did they force you to drink the rest afterwards?
no, I remember I threw up the first time we drank it because it did actually taste quite nice because gravy is pretty delicious.
Yeah.
And then I threw up in my friend's bedroom and we wrapped it in a duvet and threw it out another pal's car window as we were driving to go out. And then the second time was New Year. My
Right.
pal decided he was going to we called it the Brown. Because my last name is Brown.
All right,
Because
okay.
it was a very brown.
It's very apt. Yeah.
Yeah.
What did it look like in the vodka? Like it was all sort of sinewy and
Just
sort of.
went weird as fuck.
Yeah. I mean, I can kind of imagine.
I
Like
mean,
it all-
I was quite drunk before I got onto the stage where I was wanting to drink it, so it's quite hard for me to remember the minute details. But I just remember being in it was like my mate's kitchen, and he lived with his parents, and I fuck knows what they were thinking when we were in the kitchen with the. I think he was watching a Twisted Sister DVD as well in the background. I don't know why he put that on, but I remember what's D. Schneider. I remember him being there.
Is that the vocalist?
Yeah.
Yeah. Was he at the party? He said
he was
he
there in spirit.
He
And on the
probably would have
TV.
been.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
He likes the Brown. He's had it before. Big D.
That's crazy, man. Ugh. I mean, everyone's always got these sort of wild stories from the youth. I remember I had, I mean, it's going to sound very homoerotic when I tell this story.
I've got heaps of them as well if you want.
My friend, I'm just going to name and shame him, but Buddy and I, we were staying at our friends, and the whole summer it was just one big party. Like we were at I was 17 or 18, and he just turned 17. And his group of friends and my group of friends sort of all joined forces that year, and we all had like parties galore.
Like American Pie 2 or something.
I've not. Have I seen? No, yeah, totally. I have
You
seen
must
that
have
one.
seen American Pie 2.
And yeah, so great party, and then we go upstairs to sleep, and sleeping bags are out, and it's our friend's house, so she has lots of like fake tan around, like you know
Yeah.
the stuff that's like in the stuff you push down,
Yeah.
but it's like sort of medical stuff. I don't know why it was like a white tub with like like a doctor's thing on the side of it.
It's like Diprobase or something.
Yeah, but I don't know what it was. But we had this mental fight with it.
Okay.
So we were getting all like we were like wrestling, and we were all pretty much lubed up, but we didn't realize it was fake tan, or stuff that you put on you. And we woke up in the morning and you should have seen the state of us. Like we were just
I
like
can imagine.
splotches all over us, and it was that was one of the best memories. And we also took porn cards, you know, the playing cards, and we put them all around our friend's house. And our parents were away on holiday, so we took these like playing cards, like, you know, for poker and all that. But on the other side of it, it had porn images. Yeah. And we like hid them throughout the whole of the house. We put them under our mum's pillow. We put them in like the pictures of the family, like in the side. And we took books and put them in the middle of the books. Classic. And I think I put like a bunch of them in our cornflakes as well. So that we might have made for I wish I was there to see with the reaction though.
I think my earliest memory of any party was the first party I went to, and it was just as everyone was sort of reaching the age where they were starting to drink. I didn't drink that night. I don't think I'd ever drank before, like, at all. So I was like, oh no, I'm not going to drink. But the first memory was I turned up this party and everyone else was hammered, and some guy just being like, I'm going to hide all their spoons. And I was just like, but why? Just like, I just am. And I was like, all right. But I mean, 6 months later when I started drinking, I probably not well for hiding all those spoons. I still couldn't tell you why, but
it's crazy when I tell people how young I was when I started drinking across, like when I go to different countries, they're always very surprised at how young everyone starts drinking. I was 13 when I
13. So
yeah,
I was 15, but I was considered a late bloomer. So like, I mean,
in what respect? And for drinking?
Yeah, considered like everyone else was drinking before. Like I say, I went to that party and everyone else was hammered, and I had never drank before, and I went and yeah, I mean, like, everyone else was drunk. I went home, and then
I had. Oh, sorry. Continue. Yeah, I'm just like
I was at a gig. I just got offered a beer one night, and that was me off and running. Like, I think I had 2 beers the first night I ever drunk, and was obviously hammered.
My first drinking experience was with Smirnoff Ice, which was like I had like 2. I remember trying to sit on the bonnet of my older brother's car, and I just slid off in front of everyone because I was like very drunk. But I don't know. You know, when you're that age, you don't know if you're drunk or you're acting drunk.
Yeah. Like
when you're young, there's like when you look back on it and reflect it, you always have a sense of that you were sort of putting it on slightly maybe. But I definitely felt wasted, and I fell off the front of his car, and he was like, well, no more Smirnoff Ices for you.
Yeah. I actually remember drinking at with my cousin when I was maybe slightly before I started drinking with my friends, and I must have drank a fair bit. And then the next day he was like asking me how I felt and stuff, and I was like, well, I felt like different, I suppose, but I was like, but I didn't feel like I was like out of control or I would have done anything like I would do without having had anything to drink. He's like, you were not pissed. Like, he seemed like almost like half disappointed, both in himself and me, that like him, that he hadn't got me pissed, and me that I just hadn't like kept drinking. He was like, you were not pissed.
There's like a huge, massive drinking culture in the UK. Do you think it's somewhere that feels it more in somewhere like a port town like Aberdeen?
There's more drinking in Aberdeen. Yeah, I think there is.
Because there's not much to do growing up, I guess, until you get to an age where you can go out and go to gigs.
Yeah, I think so. I'm from Montrose originally.
Okay. Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow.
So in Montrose, there's even more of that because it's a small town. So there's even more of like nothing to do. So there's a lot of like hanging out in parks and stuff like that, and drinking. This is very stereotypical, but Aberdeen, I think, it does have quite a big drinking culture. Yeah,
that's quintessentially British to drink in a park.
Yeah.
My girlfriend, she's Canadian, she's like, I've never drunk in a park at that age or whatever, and I was like, it's your rite of passage as a teenager in the UK to go in a park and drink.
Yeah.
If you're not drinking cider, then what the fuck are you doing with your life?
I think I remember drinking 7 cans of Tennent's one night.
Wow.
And like being absolutely off my nut.
Do you remember when you were younger and that was like, I don't know, that was your go-to drink? Do you remember drinking any other beer apart from Tennent's at that age?
but I think I started off on Budweiser, but just because that's what my dad would drink Guinness or Budweiser.
Yeah.
And there was no fucking chance of getting Guinness down at that age, so I always went for Budweiser to start with.
Yeah.
And then
because there was none of this type of stuff when I was younger.
Absolutely not.
Like IPAs and all this craft type of beer. I mean, I guess there was some, but it was expensive, and you couldn't buy like 24 for £1.
No, I don't know. I don't even know whether you would have got IPAs. I mean, you must have got them, but it would have been very rare. Maybe we had to go to somewhere like, what are the shops called? Like the actual like alcohol shops that you get. Like, I passed one on the way here. Like Odd Bins, something like that.
Mm-hmm. Victoria wine. Did you have those?
Yeah, we had
Vicky wines.
Yeah. So you could probably get your IPAs and MD 2020. You could probably get both of them under one roof.
Aftershock. Have you ever tried that?
Aftershock.
Yeah.
I feel I have. Yeah.
Yeah.
But in bars, like people bought me shots.
Man, it makes me feel sick just thinking about it.
It's quite syrupy, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, I love Jaeger. Like everyone loves a Jaeger bomb and Jaeger and fucking. But when people start getting on the aftershock, that's just when I'm like, I'm out. I'm going home. Yeah. So sorry, I burped in the mic.
That's all right.
So you started with your podcast, MoodSwings. How long's that been going on?
And
why?
Why? I think it's about a year. It must be a year and a half now. I've had a couple of breaks. In amongst that time. Why? It's a long-winded story, I'm afraid. But I did back in 2014, I think it was. I did a writing project where I decided that for the whole year, like right from the 1st of January right through the whole year, I was going to write at least 365 words a day.
Wow.
For the whole year.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a tall order. 365 days. Words a day.
I know. It was, looking back, it was like a crazy thing to put upon myself. But
where did you get the idea for it?
I don't know. I just one day I was trying to think of stuff, a way I could make myself write more. Cause I've always written since I was young.
Okay.
And I felt like I was getting loads and loads of ideas at work and other places when I was out and about where I couldn't sit down and write, and that I would never ever get home at night and be tired. And I'll remember it tomorrow, and then time passes and you don't get time to sit down and write and you forget it. So the idea was that like every day that I've got one of these ideas, and I'll have to write it down because I've like made this promise to myself. And the days where I don't have any ideas, I can just try and find something to write about.
Okay. Force yourself.
Yeah. So I decided to do that, and then later on in the year, just one day when I wasn't feeling great, I decided to write about mental health. I did it. It came out really easily. Wrote it, posted it straight away, and it had like more response to that than pretty much anything else I wrote for the whole year. And something like I really did have quite a big response just among my own like social circle and the people that were following the blog.
And when was this? What year?
2014.
Okay.
So then a couple of years later, I just kept thinking back to the article, and things were different with my mental health. A couple of years on, I was struggling in a different way.
So had you had the experience with sort of struggling with your mental health when you were writing that article?
Yeah, I mean that's just primarily. I actually read an article by someone else that they'd written and related to it, and thought, I quite like to get my own thoughts and feelings and experiences down on paper. So that was what I did. The article I initially read was completely different to my experiences. It was a lot to do with drugs.
Was it the band scene type thing? Was it or
no? It was the guy's quite famous now. It was the guy Loki.
Okay, no,
rapper.
No way.
Yeah,
holy shit.
I don't know if I've ever told anyone. I must have told someone that it was him, but I don't know if I've ever said it on mic.
Do you know what? He's been making videos on YouTube for so fucking long. I remember he was like featured somewhere. Like he did a documentary on BBC like 10 years ago.
Yeah,
like maybe a bit longer. Yeah. And I only just heard of him like maybe a couple of years ago.
I've had a pal of his on Facebook for years. He used to be involved through a punk scene. I think that I went to one of their gigs and I added this guy on Facebook, and he's really good mates with Loki. And he shared one of his blogs, and I read it. And then like, his experiences were all very much to do with addiction and addictions to painkillers and stuff that he wrote about online. And I read that and I was like, that's not my experience. I related a lot to some of the other stuff he said around, and it just gave me the idea that I could write about that myself. So I wrote about it. And like I said, put that out, had a great response. And then just a couple of years later, I wanted to do something again. It's like, so I just really enjoyed writing that piece. It was really therapeutic for me, the first one, so I wanted to do it again. But I just couldn't quite find a tone for it in the sort of long-winded form that I did it in the first one, which was quite kind of not an essay, but it was a longer piece. So I decided to sort of take up that sort of layout that I'd had before, where I wrote aimed for a set amount of words every day for a set period of time. So I did, for the whole of February, I wrote at least 28 words about anxiety or depression or whatever I was feeling that day for the whole of the month.
Okay. And was it on a blog?
Yeah,
okay.
That was called MoodSwings. Okay. I did that. It went really well. People really responded to it. And then following that, I got a girl I knew in Dundee, an artist who'd done little bits and pieces of art for other like bands and stuff I'd been in before.
Okay.
I got in touch with her and said, "This is what it's about. Here's the blogs. Could you do just knock up like a logo for it?" She knocked it up, and I got t-shirts printed and sold them. Just 50 t-shirts, with all the profits going to Anxiety UK.
Wow. Yeah.
And they sold out. I mean, not like flying off the shelves, but they sold out within the space of a couple of weeks, and they were gone, and I was able to donate like a few £100 to Anxiety UK. And then just at that point, I was like, I'm onto something here. I'm really enjoying it. Other people are enjoying it as well. But I don't want it to just be me sat behind a keyboard. And at the time, I was listening to loads of like Scroobius Pip's podcasts and Adam Buxton, just all the bigger ones. And
it's a good one. The Adam Buxton one's awesome.
Yeah, he's really good. And just thought it sounded easy enough. I did sound production at college, as we touched on, so I had some experience, like some knowledge.
You know how to set up a mixer and the mic.
Yeah. So I just thought, like, buy
no brainer, really.
Yeah, just go for it, see what happens. And then that's it. And I just kept.
When was
going.
The first one?
I'm sure it was April. I'm sure the blog was in February, and I'm sure the first podcast went out towards the end of April.
Okay. And did you have someone on?
The first one was just a Q&A that followed on from the blog. So I had my pal Adam, who's an actor, and just thought he'd be confident enough to speak on mic. So just me and him sat, and he like sort of read the questions out to me, and we just had a bit of a laugh. We did that, and I put that out, and then my friend Ewan, who studied journalism and did a lot of music journalism and is in a band himself, I knew he'd had his own experiences. So then it just was like, let's just have a chat about it and record it. And it just went from there. I just lined up. In fact, I think the first one I recorded was maybe Ewan's girlfriend.
Right, okay.
We recorded them both the same night, and just put like, she was a writer as well, and just started doing it with people I knew or people that were friends of friends that I could get in touch with, and just went from there. I think once you've done the first couple, it just rolls on.
Yeah, the ideas sort of come together for people to come on.
Yeah,
and it doesn't matter. You can have. I mean, I don't want to speak for your show, but you can essentially find anyone that's had experiences with suffering through their mental health, and just people on the street to people that are in movies or whatever. It's just, it affects everyone on a scale.
Yeah. I think I'm a believer in, like, you can have I've never ever struggled. I've ever had a guest on where I've struggled to speak about mental health with them. And I've never, like, I've had guests on that have absolutely no idea whether or not they've had mental health issues or what it is. But I think everyone's got, when they know what they're coming into, everyone's got a little something to say, whether it's something that would be labelled under a condition or just experiences of, and I've done a lot with like sort of like MMA fighters and Muay Thai fighters now as well. And
Ross, you had on Ross Houston, who's now the welterweight champion. Of Cage Warriors. So it was a good episode.
Yeah, and he was great. It wasn't so much the like mental health in terms of like depression or anything. It was more about how he prepped himself for fights and stuff. So I just found that you can pretty much get anyone on, and there's an avenue to go down. Because
fighting is one of the most sort of anxiety-inducing things that you could probably do. 2 months you're leading up to this one thing against someone else in combat, and all you can do is think about this one person for 2 months and what's going to happen. And if you're sort of someone that thinks is in their head a lot, that is going to cause some problems or trouble.
Yeah, definitely. But I mean, I think everyone approaches that differently, and I think with combat sports now, there's so much like media stuff surrounding it. That about it being a mental game and about the mental warfare. I think people like Conor McGregor, and even before him, like Muhammad Ali, all these people have made it into sort of a battle you do with the other person's mind. You try and upset their thought process and how they approach the fight, but and not as much in the media. I don't think people focus on how much you do sort of, without sounding ridiculously cheesy, but you do battle with yourself in your own mind and lead up to those things, and it's often about overcoming your own hang-ups and your own anxieties, as you said, about what you're way to go into that is what might lead to you winning or losing the fight. And it's not always about breaking the other guy. Sometimes it's about overcoming your own hang-ups or anxieties.
I mean, the amount of fighters I know that are pretty much their own worst enemy when it comes to fighting. Like, it's whether they can deal with themselves as opposed to someone else when they get to the cage. Yeah, like you're saying, it's just their fight to get to the cage in their mind. For some fighters that I've seen is just overwhelms them, and that shows in their fight, you know. And I've seen plenty of fighters that can just amazing in the gym, and then when they get to the fight night, it's just that their mind is just somewhere else, or too much focused on what's going on, and they can't overcome their mind when it leads up to the fight. Yeah, which is a shame, because there's a lot of people that have sort of went unheard of because of that in the MMA world. Yeah, it's just that battle that happens.
Yep, and that's the hardest bit about it. And it's sometimes the old cliche that you've either got it or you don't. That's not always about your ability to throw a punch. That's about your ability to get in there and
not care and just
and be able to do it.
Focus on fighting. You know, it's once you get in there, that's all the hard work done. You can't change anything when you get to there, and it's just all, you know, you're not. The amount of times you don't feel anything when you're in the fight, it's not about getting hit. Yeah. It's just about, you know, you're just being mentally strong for it. Yeah. It's tough, but it's a tough thing to do.
100%, yeah. Like, massive respect to anyone that does it.
But you train a little bit, don't you?
Yeah, I train Muay Thai mostly. Okay. Yeah, I did white collar boxing. All right. That's how I first got into training at all. So I don't know whether really that counts as a fight, but I suppose I know they build up and they sort of a little bit of the emotions that you go through, a little bit of.
How did you feel doing something like that coupled with your mental health? Was it something you were aware of at the time, or?
It's not something that I felt went hand in hand at the time. I don't know. I think for me it was sort of good for that 8-week or maybe even 10-week period that I was training for that. I mean, that was all I thought about really was that fight, and my lifestyle totally changed. Was obviously not going out or not drinking or anything. I don't think I really changed.
No more
much
browns for you, you know, that's terrible.
No more of the brown. That certainly did not pass my lips. And I think that was probably what kept me training, was the fact that it became, although I had anxiety surrounding the fight, I could channel it. I knew very specifically what the anxiety was about. And I could train harder or train more or do something to combat it. Whereas you can't always do that in situations in day-to-day life.
So would you say the training itself was alleviating those stresses about competing, I guess?
Yeah. And just like, I don't know, it was just, I signed up for it when after a drunken night out, a work night out with a pal who'd done a charity boxing event before, and he said, "You'll never do." I just said to him, because I actually
had you done boxing up until this point?
No, I'd never boxed or anything, but we hosted an event at my work when I worked it, and we were speaking about it on
like Fightclub or something.
No, it was just like one of those events, one of the white collar boxing. Okay. Like, and then just on the Christmas night out, I said to we were speaking about it, and I said to one of the guys, I was like, I'm quite fancy a go at that. I think it could, be quite good fun. And they'd done it, and they said, "You would never do it." And it was just one of my old school friends from back, like, I'd known him since I was maybe 11 or 12, so not like primary school, but I'd known him for a good like 10 years or something. And I was like, "No, I would." And, "No, you wouldn't." And he's like, "Well, sign up just now." And I was like, "How can I sign up just now? It's like 2 a.m. He's like, "You just go on the website and just do it." So I signed up for it, and then the next day I woke up to all these texts like, "You've been accepted for white collar boxing." And I'm so hard headed. I knew there was no way I was gonna unless they had some sort of injury. I wasn't gonna make an excuse or back out of it. I knew I had to go through with it, whether or not how well it went. So I just threw myself into it, and yeah, I think I was really looking forward to fighting by the end of it.
Did you feel any stress about it though?
Or
was it just sort of natural anxiety?
I felt like, I think it's natural. I think it was just, it felt really good to be doing something really different. I think
to have a goal like that as well, which is so immediate.
I think the main anxiety I remember actually now that I think really deep about it was about who I was going to be fighting.
Yeah.
Because you're training with these, it's all obviously you're in a big group with all these guys. So you get to know all of them, get to know all the faces even if you don't get to know them personally. So you're constantly looking around the room and thinking, which one of these lads is going to be punching me in the face in like 8 weeks, 6 weeks, 4 weeks, 2 weeks, next week. Because you only find out a few days before you fight.
Okay.
Obviously because they don't want tiffs erupting in the gym with like people training. If you told somebody, oh, you're fighting him in 8 weeks, it's a guy you never know. Yeah, you're just going to be looking at him across the room. And also everyone learns and progress at different rates as well within that. So you don't want to like, you make it someone in there that's a total natural.
Was it the 16-ounce gloves and with the head guard? Is it or
yeah, we had head guards as well. Yeah,
it's pretty cool though.
Yeah.
How did it go?
I lost the fight on points, but yeah, I enjoyed it.
It's a good experience.
And
man.
And there was no pressure on me after that to continue training or doing anything. And then I took I think a week off or something, and then went straight back to it. And I've been. Apart from a little period at the end of last year where I wasn't training because I was so busy, I've been at it solids for now for like 2.5 years.
Wow. So. Are you got any plans to do another sort of fight maybe?
I'd love to fight Thai next year. I only started Thai at the start of this year. It was kind of counterproductive. I boxed for like a year and a half, and then now I've had to unlearn loads of like boxing stuff to like adapt to Thai. 100%. I'd love to fight Thai. But I just love training. I absolutely love it. I'm in the gym pretty much 6 days a week.
That's cool.
Now, and just
it's so important to have those type of goals and something that's steady and a constant in your life, whether it's music. You know, we've all had these things in our lives throughout the years, and I think it becomes especially difficult when you get to our age. You know, you can lose contact with friends. You can maybe not be as inclined to do things in groups, so it's hard to find motivation to do something that can keep your focus every day.
Yeah, I think
because you're not going out every weekend, and you're not playing five-a-side or whatever. You know, it's just it changes. Like people get married, people have kids, and it just or move away as you get older.
Yeah, 100%. A lot of my friends now live in Glasgow. I'm still up north, but yeah, I don't know. I just think it's like something for me that's a complete constant in my life that I can train, and then I've got a group of friends within that are like-minded or train that amount of time a week, and also it's good for me physically as well as mentally. Like, and it really tires me out. And when you're knackered, you don't have time to think about all these unsavory things at the back of your head.
Do you know what I always struggled with after training is trying to get to sleep?
Oh, really?
Because I'm always buzzing. Like it took me maybe till like 2 or 3 in the morning some nights. Yeah. And not even just when I have a fight coming up. It was just always when I'm in a sort of strict training regime. When I get to night, I'm so wired. Because I'm thinking, it must be to do with because I'm thinking about what I did in that training session, like what I did wrong, what I was doing right, and what I could improve, and what someone did to me, and how I can get around that and counter that.
Yeah, 100% know what you mean about like thinking about that. Like, but I think I probably think about that for about a couple hours after I finished. I'm quite lucky that the sessions that our classes and stuff are quite early on, so it's like starts like 6 o'clock, so you're done by maybe 7:30, 8.
Right. Okay.
Which is quite decent. You get home, you got a couple hours to unwind. But I think if you were training till 9, 10 o'clock at night, I can see how that would happen.
When I was training like sort of more regularly in MMA, I stayed like an hour away, so I would have to drive there and then do the training session to 8:30 and then drive back. You know, it'd be like 10 o'clock before I get home. Yeah. Sometimes, and I would obviously have to eat because I've just done a hard training session. Yeah. So I can't even believe I did that at that time.
You do anything though, I think. That's what I mean, once you've got...
When you get obsessed with it, like, I mean, you must feel that with Muay Thai. Like, you just feel like it's pulling you in no matter what you do.
Yeah, it's 100% an obsession. And I think I've always had... When I played music, I was the same. Like, I just wanted to do it all the time and was constantly thinking about it. And it's the same with anything I do that I'm passionate about. I just get into that mindset. And with with Muay Thai, it's the same with even sometimes with like the podcast as well. Like constantly buzzing, thinking about who can I get on, when can I get away to.
They say that's sort of maybe a symptom of like anxiety and depression and all that, is having like laser focus for things and not being distracted by other things.
Yeah, I think it's definitely all in amongst the big cauldron of the bubbling cauldron of my brain. It's all mixed in together.
Yeah.
Do you want one of these San Miguels?
I'm actually going to go to the bathroom.
Okay.
So yeah, I mean, I've not done this in a while because I've not had a beer on podcast and live in a while, but I'm going to go for one.
Okay. Yeah.
And I'm back.
We're back on. I felt very exposed there out the room.
Sorry, just go on your phone and I can see your login. There's a camera up there, so.
No, is there?
No, I'm joking.
Oh.
So it's very rude to open your can on air, but
yeah,
muzzle tough.
Cheers.
San Miguel. Not drugs this since the days in
not?
Spain.
I love a San Miguel. I don't know why. It's probably my favourite of the sort of shit. Is it okay to call them shit beers? I think I really enjoy a San Miguel.
It's just it was one that you would drink. In my experience, when you would go to Spain, like Mallorca or Palma Nova and all these places, and you would drink like the 40 ounces. Do you remember those? Yeah. And you would get them for like 37 pence. And as a young, teenager, you would get absolutely hammered off these 40 ounces. 100%. But yeah, it's good. It's good sort of shit beer.
Yeah. I mean, my favourite beer that you get in Spain is a can that you get in the Lidl in Spain. It's called Argus. It tastes like absolute dog water.
Is it Greek? Is it Greek?
No, I think it's Spanish.
Okay.
It's the local brew. It comes in a little red can. It's called Argus.
Argus.
And it's, I think, a behold. Have you ever been to Primavera?
No.
The festival. So like,
where is it?
Barcelona.
Okay.
But it's a city festival, so there's no camping or anything. It's just in a big auditorium thing in the middle of the city.
Wow.
And there's like
shit. Good catch.
Very good catch.
Uh-oh.
This is the problem with shit beers, is they froth like nobody's business.
So I just spilled my beer everywhere. I'll have to go get something to clean it up.
Sorry.
This is why you shouldn't drink on a podcast.
I know, but it's a Friday night, so.
I always drink them. I used to drink a lot more on them. That's it.
Sorry.
And I still end up hitting the camera or something. Okay, continue before I
What was I
really
saying?
spilt my beer everywhere.
But anyway, outside the grounds of like the festival, there's just all these guys selling cans of beer for €1. And that's sort of where the Argus comes from. Although you can get it in Lidl, we first discovered it being sold by just these guys. They just stand outside and say, like, Serbia. I don't know what the first word is. The only thing, there's rumours that
a beer, maybe?
Maybe, but there's rumours that they keep them in the sewers.
Why
to keep them cold? I don't think it's true, but there's rumours that that's what they
It sounds like one of those like wild sort of.
It's like an urban myth.
Conspiracy theories, yeah. Urban myth.
But I mean, they could be keeping them anyway, but they seem to have an abundance of them, and they don't have many on their person at once.
Okay.
They're carrying 2 6-packs, and then they'll like sell them off, and then next you turn around, they've got them again. But it's quite helpful when you stumble out the festival, like, because the festival runs overnight, so you stumble out like 4 or 5 a.m.
Mm-hmm.
And you're like, oh, and the guy just hands you a beer for €1. Like, oh, that's good.
I was thinking about it there, and just why do you think, just to bring it back to your blog and your podcast, but why do you think it resonates so much with people, and what sort of typically what demographic is it that sort of you get response from or hear from? Or
I think it's quite a wide range. I think it often depends on the guest as well. I mean, like, certainly within, like, say, if you Scottish music, sort of the indie scene. So you look at when I've had like James from the Twilight Sad and people like that on that sort of music scene, you get a lot of the guys that listen to that kind of music, because that sort of music's sort of associated with, it's like there's always the Twilight Sad. It's in the name. Like it's like associated with sadness, and the lyrics are quite dark, and it's quite dark music. So you get a lot of that demographic where people have tapped into the music anyway because it emotes something in them. So listening to people talk about it is something they appreciate as well. And then it's just the same across the board with the MMA stuff, with people that are in MMA or in Muay Thai, whatever, and listen to those ones. And most of those people train, so they'll have some idea about psychology that goes into that. But across the board as well, I think there's a way, like, certain people that will always be interested in listening to stuff about mental health because of their own experiences. And I don't know if there's a demographic for that.
I mean, I think what I'm trying to get to is obviously there's an abundance of stats that point to males of a certain age, are the ones that are most likely to commit suicide through various sort of issues, and a lot of them coming from their mental health up until that point.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's what I was trying to get to. Is it people that are sort of males of a certain age brackets that are sort of talking about their mental health to you? Because I was surprised that you had that lady on your recent one. What was her name?
Lynn.
Yeah,
this week.
It was good, and it's just something that you don't see often. Is that sort of person talking about their mental health on a show?
I think it goes behind. It's like anything; it goes behind closed doors. So much, and I think that's the issue that you have with young guys, is that they very much have an image they want people to perceive of them, and that it doesn't go hand in hand with that image to say that you're depressed or you're anxious. The image you probably want to portray to people is that you're a strong, confident guy with, like, interests, whatever your interests are, going to the gym, or playing in a band, or Ryan Gosling movies, just like, whatever, like
The Notebook.
Yeah, I mean, just like whatever it is, like, but you don't want to portray, but I'm also like depressed, or the fact that I'm having all these one night stands is actually causing me upset because like I'm not in a relationship, or I don't really enjoy. I'm going down a very sexual route here. I don't know why, but I'd like
porn. Is that what you want to talk about?
Exactly, or things like that as well. Like people suffer like addiction. I don't know why I'm going to porn addiction.
Well, one of the guys I had on recently, from the Rebel City podcast, he was addicted to porn and sex.
Yeah.
And it just came up at the beginning, like offhand, something, he was like saying how he was recovering from it and whatnot. And so immediately there we had a topic for the rest of the podcast, because it's not often you meet someone who's had those addictions, because most people just laugh them off as like, oh, I wish I was like, was like that or whatever.
Yeah, and I think quite often when you'll feel happen in a room, I think, and I can think back to times where this has happened in a room with certain like people in my friend group, where someone will say something offhand to see what the reaction is. So they'll make a joke, but also there's that old saying, there's no such thing as a joke. So they'll make a joke about themselves, or maybe about a tendency to be drinking too much, or whether it be like a porn addiction. So I shouldn't laugh. Like, I don't know why I laugh, but yeah, it's just because I was throwing it back there. But whatever it is, or about maybe someone will make a joke about suicide that's maybe just a bit too can't, like, they sort of wait out. They put me a slight pause. And I can think back to times when people in my social circle have done that, and it's almost like they're trying to like bring the conversation there in a nervous sort of way, and it doesn't
almost
always
like for a cry for help.
Yeah, a wee bit, but it just
or for some sort of,
or just to see what everyone else's reaction is, just to see if anyone else in the room's ears pick up a bit more, and maybe
it's called like judging the room.
Yeah,
when you're a comedian, like you got to judge the room, then what jokes you tell.
Yeah, 100%. And I think it's definitely within my social circle, guys I'm friends with about my age have definitely become more vocal speaking to me. People I know personally, 100%.
I guess when you have something like your podcast and your blogs, then that gives other people confidence to speak up about these issues, and it's hugely important. And I think in the UK, and more so Scotland, because we're males and people in general in Scotland are very adverse to talking about the things that they're going through emotionally like that, or their mental health. It's just something that you don't talk about.
Yeah.
And I think as young people, well, somewhat young people now, and the younger generation, I mean, I don't know, are the younger generation then not as able to talk freely about it because of the era they've grown up in? Are we just part of that last sort of group of generation, was it X or whatever? Or
yeah, I think so. I think
and we just can't do it. But the next generation now are so open because of social media and whatever, that this is something they can talk about or project, things that they project they can talk about.
I think so. I think younger people than myself are definitely getting better at talking about it. And I think for myself, although I've been quite open about mental health, I think throughout my life, and always been aware that I had stuff going on, I don't think I always had the best vocabulary for describing what I was experiencing. Especially when, like, you know, I was thinking, what was I, 22 or 23, I had my first panic attack.
Wow.
And I didn't know what it was. I didn't know what anxiety was. I thought anxiety was like almost what we were talking about earlier about like nervousness or nervous energy. I just assumed anxiety was like, you know, that like butterflies in the stomach sort of thing. Had no vocabulary for it at all. And I think that's what makes it hard to talk about. Like,
not having the tools to talk about.
I don't know anything about cars, so if someone tries to speak to me about cars, then I don't have anything. I can't say anything about it. So it's the same with mental health. If you don't have the vocabulary to talk about it, and it's not always easy, even for me who's done it loads and loads. It's not always easy for me to describe how I'm feeling. There's a lot of what's the word I'm looking for? There's a lot of grey area, a lot of nuance within it, and it can be quite difficult to describe how you're feeling. As long as when you're feeling at your worst as well, is when it's really hard to talk about it, because you just like have your mind might be almost blank and so you feel very numb or very, very low. You can't come out with how you're feeling. Or if you're very, very anxious, it's going to be very hard for you to describe how you're feeling because you're going to be so in your head. So quite often once you've come out of that period, or you get a bit more level-headed, you don't want to talk about it because you don't want to remember. It's just that you've had that really low moment. And I think that's where the problems maybe arise, especially with. I think that's where the demographic of young guys struggling with it really comes from. Is that I think girls and maybe a bit more like when someone says "How you doing," it can be a bit easier for them, for whatever reason, to say, "Oh, I struggled the other day." Whereas with guys, I think you want to talk about anything about yourself. Oh, I'm fine. Let's talk about football or movies or Ryan Gosling or like whatever.
I mean, I've been guilty of feeling like that towards people who are sort of openly, they talk about their feelings very openly, and sort of minute by minute, like how they're feeling at that time. I just feel like that makes me feel awkward, and I'm so guilty of that, and it's something that I think a lot of people who have sort of a balanced mental health are people who are talk about their feelings immediately and how they're feeling at that time. You know, because they're getting rid of how they're feeling, and it's not laying on them, and they're not overthinking it. You know, they're talking immediately about it, and as men, we tend to not do that. We like that sort of fester and think too much and not let people interject when we have those feelings and have their say. And half the time, it's not even how we perceive it or think it, but we don't give people that time to sort of tell us that it's not that. You know what I'm saying. So yeah, it's tough.
I think sometimes the worry is that the things that come up in your own mind, I think you sometimes think that no one else will ever have experienced that. That's certainly been the case with me. Yeah. I wrote a blog about an anxiety I had where I got very paranoid about having contracted an STD and having a long-term girlfriend, and there was no reason for me. I think I contracted this STD or anything. Like, this is how irrational it was, but I became totally convinced in my mind that
So was it something that you had to say to your girlfriend, and then?
I did. I think I said it to her a few times offhand as a joke that I was paranoid about it, and she sort of I don't think she knew how to respond really. But I was so paranoid that if I acted on it, that and went and got a sexual health check, she would think there was something in it.
Yeah, like you were cheating. Yeah.
And I became absolutely obsessed with the idea, and that was what led to my first panic attack.
Wow.
Or the first one that I would have was identified as a panic attack anyway. And then for a long time, even after I started the podcast and the blog and that, I didn't want to talk about that because I still had this hang up that no one else would have been this so silly or so ridiculous as to let something that had absolutely no substance to it become something so real to them. And then it was a friend's blog they were looking for contributors, and I thought, fuck it, I'm gonna write about it on a format that's not my own. It'll feel a little bit less, I'll still share it on Facebook or whatever, but it won't be part of the MoodSwings thing, so it'll feel a little bit more removed from me in a way, and I'll still get to write about it, and it'll still be out there. So I did that and shared it, and I had people I've known for years speak to me about how they'd had not exactly the same story, but they'd had similar hang-ups about sexual health and stuff, and how they felt about it, and how you can get totally paranoid about it.
Yeah.
And since then, there's been a couple of issues that I've thought were no one else thinks this. This is ridiculous, and I've spoken to friends about them, and they've told me they've had the same hang-ups. So it is. I think that's the scary thing, is that you get really in your head about, you think that no one else can relate to you, and you get very if I tell somebody this, they're going to think differently of me. And half the time, the guy sitting next to you probably has had the same thought or the same,
or probably thinking the same thing at the exact same time. You know, I think there's a sort of a mountain of anxiety that you have to overcome to speak to someone about something, and it seems sort of insurmountable. Like, it feels like you can't even summit this mountain of just the thoughts and a depressive state. But once you get past that and tell someone and speak to someone like that, it just becomes nothing. Like, it evaporates, this mountain.
I can tell you stories about before. This is going back to before I would have had what I would call a panic attack, but where I was going through these really anxious states, and I would call my friends or text them or whatever and say, I need to speak to you, and I would sit them down and I would tell them whatever was on my mind, and they would laugh. And that sounds like the worst thing in the world, but it was actually the best thing ever, was for them to laugh at me and go, what the fuck are you on about? You sound so stupid. And that sounds really harsh, and I don't think they would approach it in the same way now, because I think everyone, this is going back a few years, so
this is how guys deal with that type of thing.
Everyone's grown, but honestly, for at the time, although I think they probably deal with it better now, at the time that was all I needed, was for somebody to tell me I was being stupid, and it was people that I trusted, so I knew that it was going to go no further.
And they're not pandering either.
Yeah,
you don't want to feel like they're sort of just telling you what you want to hear. Like, they're being honest and laughing at you, which is I am being stupid, It
completely removes the power of whatever's in your head, because then you think, I'm really stupid and this is really ridiculous, but it feels real to me. As soon as you vocalize it and it gets out there, first of all, it's off your shoulders, because it's not just in your head anymore, it's out there, and somebody else knows it and they're thinking about it. And then as soon as they laugh and say, you don't need to worry about that, I mean, that comes straight back at you, and they're right, I don't need to worry about that. And it doesn't last forever. Maybe the same things will come up again, and you'll have to do the same thing again. But I think that however you get out, and whatever the response is, unless somebody says that is you're right to worry about that, in which case, if they say that, then maybe you are right to be worrying about it, and it's something you need to address. But that could be a whole number of things. But even if someone laughs at you or whatever, as long as they're your pal and it's done in the right sort of compassionate way, and they're laughing at you because they want you to realize what you're thinking about or whatever's bothering you is
and it's
not
all
something should be affecting you.
It's all relative, you know, like
Yeah.
if you know your friends and it's all within your sort of banter circle, then you know how they're going to take it. Well, you know how they're reacting to it is not something that's to be taken sort of very seriously.
Yeah. Yeah, and I definitely felt that at the time. And it's funny, it's the same friends that I still have now that would probably react completely differently. And I think that's a testament to how people are changing, how the stigma around it is changing. But
it's definitely something that's happening. You know, it's not just like bullshit in the news and whatever. It's happening from within. You know, it's not something that the people are, the government's doing this about mental health. Like, that's never been said because it'll never happen. Yeah. You know, it's coming from people, day-to-day people that are doing stuff like blogs and podcasts, and that's where it's going to get help from. Yeah,
I think it's just day-to-day people as well. Just everyone having a bit, like I say, vocabulary for me is a massive thing. That more and more people can.
But a show like yours gives people the power to have that vocabulary, you know, and hear and see people that have went through these experiences as well, and knowing that sometimes they're just being stupid and sometimes it's just completely overthinking something that's nothing.
Yeah, I think the thing I try to do on with MoodSwings as well is like highlight different ways that people have dealt with it. You know, I would never slate like people taking medication. Yeah. The same way I would never slate people taking, you know, using certain types of therapy. I think everyone's different as to what they respond to. And that's a thing. I think in day-to-day life that can be quite different. I think sometimes people will be, you don't want to go on those pills. They'll just turn you into a zombie or whatever. Whereas like, you know, other people will tell you that medication. I've had somebody on the podcast tell me that medication saved their life.
I've heard some stories as well. Like one of the biggest probably people that some people might know is Ari Shafir. Have you heard of him? Yeah. He dealt with depression and severe sort of suicidal tendencies really badly. And he went on medication. They tweaked it a little bit just to feel to fix what was right for him, and it helped him immensely. And he weaned himself off of it. You know, there are people that it just suits. You know, it's there for a reason. Is it for everyone? No.
Some people really need to understand why they're feeling a certain way, and for them the best treatment is therapy, because then you unpick why you feel a certain way, and then when it happens again, you understand what the trigger was. Yeah. And you understand what the thought process was, and you can logically figure out, and then that takes the feeling away. And for some people, medications they just need that little boost, or just need whatever that medication provides, just to get them back on a level playing field or close to a level playing field, so they can deal with issues in their own way. But like I said, I don't think it's whatever suits you.
One of some of the things I've seen is Vice. I notoriously hate Vice.
You hate Vice.
But they're posting articles about exercise is not the answer for anyone who's on depression. It's like, well, of course, but at the same time, it's a massive part of it. You know, like you have to have structure somehow. You have to have something that you do every day, and you have to exert yourself. A lot of people are not exerting themselves 100%. In the way that they should be, but it's not a cure. No, it's something not. Coupled with other parts of your life that will help and promote good thoughts.
And I think for 9 out of 10 people are going to feel better if they exercise. I think it's just as a physical thing. Anything, you're going to feel better physically if you exercise. But I just think sometimes if you're really low, or even for people that aren't feeling really low, if you're not used to exercise, not used to a gym environment or whatever, or going out for a run, it can be hard. It can be really hard. It's not even always the general exercise that's bothering you. It's the idea of going to a gym, like it's an unfamiliar surrounding, or.
And I always say there's like a 2-week line time with exercise. Like there's the 2 weeks when you come back to something, or you're first starting the gym, when it's just not enjoyable. And I think after those 2 weeks, when your body adapts and is able to, and you're able to feel the benefit of actually exercising, that's, you know, you just have to get past those first 2 weeks, because it's like, ugh, like this is sore and whatever. But then when you get ahead of that, then it becomes enjoyable. Like you like feeling that way. Yeah, it's your body adapting.
I think that's especially prevalent with running. I think anyone like running sucks when you like when you first start running. It's horrid. You really need to push that past that period. I have some sort of masochistic tendency where I will run until I get to the point where it stops being horribly hard, and then I'll stop running for 6 weeks
and then go back to
it. Oh God.
You're like, oh, see if I can still do this.
Yeah, I don't know why I do that. But I think so. To tell someone just if you're feeling depressed, like just to go to the gym, not always the answer. I think that has its own hang-ups. I had a gym probably 100 yards from my front door for a couple of years, and I thought about joining it twice a week, 3 times a week for maybe 18 months, and just thought, no, I don't want to do it. Like, I'm not sure about this. My girlfriend went. She was a member of that gym, so I could ask her all the questions under the sun about it, and she could have laid it out for me. I'm sure if I went on their website, they probably have a digital tour I could have taken, but I still enjoyed it. And then, I joined and
but what was
went for like 18 months. I was there for a couple of years, going all the time.
What do you think was the thing that was sort of stopping you from doing that? Like, was that part of your anxiety and your sort of?
Yeah, definitely. I think it's just fear of being judged, I suppose. I think you go into fear that in those environments there's always going to be someone that's better than you, and that is a scary thing, I think, for you going, especially like in gyms and stuff. There's always going to be someone that's fitter, and if you're going in at base level, it's maybe a worry that you know. It's just that I think it's that age-old thing that goes. You go in, you think just everyone's going to turn around and laugh at you. You're going to be ridiculed. Completely, obviously, not going to happen. Like, you're just going to be.
Well, the one I always would think to myself was that my first week, the first time I'm going to go, is not going to benefit me. It's just going to get me in my foot on the ladder. So it was like, well, that's why. Like, if it's not going to benefit me immediately, I felt like, well, I should.
What's the point?
Well, yeah, what's the point? Like, I want it to have like an effect immediately. But
yeah, I don't know. I just think I just was just like terrified of just like it just being a horrible experience and just
some steroid monkey coming over.
Yeah, just being. And then I've had those experiences in the gym. Not where people have laughed at me. That would be a bit. But I've had experiences where you go in and like be a bit of a passive aggression from someone or whatever, but you get over that so quickly. And
one of the worst things I've ever, to me anyway, one of the worst things, relatively, this is not like two things can be bad. This is what I'm saying here, but people mocking people who are overweight in the gym, because they're there to change their life. They've made that step and that choice to be there, and they're doing their utmost and their best at that point to become a better version of themselves. And to sort of mock them is just it's like beating up a homeless person, when you're drunk out on a night out with your mates. It's that level of just like, what? How can anyone think like that?
You also don't know what that person's been through. That could be an high-level amateur football player who did their knee and was out injured for 2 years and put on loads of weight because they're used to having a high-level exercise and they didn't adapt to having to change their diet and not be able to exercise all the time and they put on loads of weight. Or it could be something like it could be anything like that.
Like them being fit was a byproduct of their job.
Yeah. So yeah, you never know what someone's story is. So you shouldn't. It's easy to say you shouldn't judge people. I think we do it intrinsically as.
Of course, we're tribalistic as people. We want to do that, so we feel part of. Like when we say this to our peers about someone else, we feel like we're part of a group. Yeah. When you look down on someone else, but it's not. You just have to get past that. It's not helpful in any way. I mean, banter between your friends and whatever. This is how you cement bonds and whatever. But to be outright cruel on social media, I've seen some people do that as well.
I think that pisses me off with social media is like the videos of people like you just said, there people overweight in the gym, or you get quite a lot of people like on the street and stuff, and it goes like viral of all these like annoys me. Someone's just going about their business and they're being filmed. If they're a bit eccentric or whatever. The one that pisses me off the most is people just posting all these videos of Kanye West, who's clearly suffering from some issues. Yeah. People are just like, I mean, I don't like his music. I don't like Kanye. I mean, sometimes he's a complete arsehole, but is that an effect of his mental health issues, which he clearly has? Yeah. There was a thing I heard about recently was with Paul Gascoigne, the footballer who was, I think the media photographed him or something outside his house, obviously drunk again, like in a dressing gown or something. I don't know the 100%, but I think his son came out publicly and just said, "Could the media just leave my dad alone? Everyone knows he has alcoholism or is a recovering alcoholic, could relapses. Like story's over. Like if we just stop photographing him drunk outside his house, like it's not helpful."
No.
It's the same with Kanye West. It's like everyone's being aware of what issues he's got. You're not helping by photographing him.
Or just showing them being crazy in interviews.
Yeah.
Like I get the whole, like memes and whatever is fine. Like this is how we sort of, like making light and being, and laughing over stuff is how we all bond as people. It's just a timeless thing. But at the same time, there's obviously, when something becomes cruel. Yeah. And that's 100%. The point when you just have to have some sort of level of awareness.
Yeah, the example as well that I hear people go back to all the time is Amy Winehouse, where like the media absolutely destroyed her every chance they got, and then as soon as she died, it was, she was such a genius. What a tragedy that she passed away so young. And then I mean, that was the first time people turned around and said, people point the finger back at the media and said, like, not that you did this, but you've 100% changed your tune from last week when you would have photographed her.
I think that's when that whole British paparazzi culture changed, maybe even after when she died, because it clearly was. It wasn't to do with the press, but the feeling that they were generating from all the pictures and finger pointing and showing her, coming out of a nightclub looking like she's almost dying. These are images that she's going to see, and it's not going to add to anything in her as a person. Yeah. It's going to take away. Yeah. But so if we probably should get past the mental health chat, because we're going to be doing your podcast actually after this. But like I seen on your Instagram, and I don't know if this is true or not, but would you say you have some sort of affinity for
Are you gonna ask me? I'm scared.
Would you say you have some sort of affinity for Louis Theroux?
I have Louis Theroux tattooed on my thigh.
No way.
Yeah.
What?
I do.
Where? Oh, obviously
my left thigh. I had to think about that there. Yeah, I love Louis.
Obviously.
I don't know how it was pretty much when I think I remember watching him when I was young. Yeah.
Because we grew up with them.
Yeah, with my parents and stuff. But then there would have been a good period where I didn't think about Louis at all.
From week to week, maybe.
No. But then when Netflix sort of became a thing and they had all those documentaries on, like since then I've been watching them loads, and I don't know. I don't know what I like about him so much. It's just his journalistic approach, I suppose. He gets away with a lot, which I really like.
I mean, he's universally loved in the UK.
And
the way he sort of disarms people as well by being sort of inquisitive and almost childlike. I mean, it's all been documented how he gets things from people. Yeah.
I just think his manner is so funny, and just I don't know. There's a lot of telling about him. Everyone goes on about how brave he is and stuff, but I think a lot of it is like very positive naivety. Not in a sort of.
But do you think it's intentional?
Yeah, I think so. I think he acts intentionally because then I think. Have you ever seen the Chris Eubank episode? Have you seen that one? Yeah. Yeah, and then when he gets in, he becomes very much in a situation where he's very, very much not comfortable, and you see a totally different side to him. Yeah. When Chris Eubank asks him to train with him, and they're like kind of like sparring about, and Louis just not enjoying it at all. I think that's the only time you can really see him really struggle. And then you've seen him with like white supremacists and all.
Well, but the wrestling one. Do you not?
Yeah, similarly.
He was like sort of maybe not as much because he felt like still felt like he kept his character.
No, I think you're right. Yeah, no, I think you're right. I had forgotten. But yeah, when the guy's screaming at him and he just said, "No, I just want to stop," and
but that showed the sort of the weird acuteness of that world. Yeah, like everyone's so weirdly in on the not the joke, the sort of what would you call the wrestling world? Like the the sort of everyone plays the character, no one talks about the business. It's like that type of thing, and everyone's still in character and portraying that, even though like Louis just this journalist asking questions, and they're like, don't question wrestling or whatever. And it's like,
I think in their heads, though, they thought what he was questioning was their integrity as athletes and the physicality that goes into it, which in fairness is very real.
Yeah.
But what he was trying to get at was unpicking the fact that it's all obviously scripted.
Yeah.
And I think there was somewhere that got lost in translation. Either they didn't want to admit it or they just didn't want to come out of character, as you said. They just wanted to. But it's funny. I can't really like.
What would you say is your favorite episode?
Oh, my favorite ever for comedy value anyway is the hip hop one.
Oh my God.
It's just from start to finish that episode, just sheer genius.
That is a brilliant one. One of my favorite ones would probably be the brothel on the highway. Is that's like a very old one? I can't remember the name of it.
I think it's just called Louis in the Brothel.
Yeah, it's a really good one.
Yeah,
the wrestling one was really good. The one he did with the religious cult, the
Westboro Baptist Church. He did 2.
They're
both brilliant.
Amazing.
Yeah. My favorite thing about those is the guy that went there to do a documentary and is now part of it.
Oh yeah,
there's a guy on it who he went out as a British journalist to.
That was in the second episode, and he does all like their videos and promotional.
But he initially went there as like a living documentarian to do a documentary, and then he got brainwashed by it.
If no one's seen like this documentary with the Westboro Baptist Church, go. There's been many a documentary about them, but go watch it. Like if anyone doesn't know about it, because there's a younger generation that have come up and not seen it, so just check it out. It's phenomenal. They're so strange, like calling soldiers fags for fighting, for the government.
It's just it's
a cult.
Yeah, it's a cult, but it's just a very. I think they just want to be the chosen few is what they're going for. It's almost explicitly anyone that isn't them explicitly is again anyone that's, and then if you don't support them as well, then you're
when you leave stuff so open to interpretation as well, then that's what you get.
Yeah.
When something's so ambiguous, like the Bible and other religious doctrines, this is the sex that can come up through it and cause damage.
Yeah. But see, I love that with like when you throw. No, I don't love that, but I love when you throw Louis into like something like that, and he just sort of like. Do you think it's a bit weird that you like? Do you think God really thinks? Do you think God, I think there's one point he says, "Do you think God really hates fags?" And they just like start spouting it back at him, and he's just like, "You missed the point completely." Like,
oh, his tactics amazing. Just showing people for what they are, like being so just naive enough to where they come out and try and school him, and then ends up showing them for what they truly are, and brainwashed. It's the same with the white supremacist when he's like, well, what if someone was a Jew and was speaking to you and whatever, and he's like, are you a Jew? And Louis wouldn't say whether he was a Jew or not.
He's not actually Jewish, but he wouldn't.
But he didn't want to say
yes or no. He didn't want to say no and then get their sort of approval, because then he would have felt like, you know what I mean? It would have felt like as if almost by gaining their approval by saying no,
like
he was almost playing up to what they wanted him to say.
Like it's saying that being Jewish is something enough to not that you don't want to be Jewish in this circumstance. Yeah. So him saying no either way would be sort of not good. Yeah. So he just said nothing, which was a good tactic. Like he kind of sticks by his guns as well.
Yeah. I really liked one of the more recent ones. He did he did one about chronic alcoholism.
Is this the series that came out this year?
It was last year, 2 years ago maybe.
Okay.
It was set in Britain, and it was about chronic alcoholism.
Okay.
And it was very, very. I mean, it wasn't like witty Louis that we're used to, but it was very hard hitting. And it was just his relationship with this young man that he met on set. What was his name?
2 seconds. I don't know that. That's what happens when you get me a beer. Right. Oh, yeah, this is what I was wanting to get into as well. 2 seconds. San Miguel's not good for you.
Quite enjoying my San Miguel.
It's good. It's actually pretty good. A lot better than I remember. Yes. So continue with your Louis on in the UK. Was it alcoholism? Yeah.
I can't remember the lad's name, but I've heard him speak about it on Adam Buxton's podcast since then. And
is this Louis?
Yeah. And he's talked quite on the show. It became quite clear that this young man who was suffering from really bad alcoholism, he was sort of going out and drinking spirits like straight, like to the point of oblivion where he didn't know what he was doing. He'd fall and have injuries, and he'd get put to hospital, then he'd end up back at the alcohol crisis unit, and the whole sort of thing, he would get sober and it would just like spiral out of control again. But sort of halfway through filming, Louis and him, this obviously struck up somewhat of a bond, and it just became very like sort of tender. And Louis speaks about it in the documentary, in the podcast with Adam Buxton, where they were actually texting. The guy was texting Louis and the producer, being like, "I'm out in the streets. Like, can you come help me?" And Louis says, like in the podcast, it became very confused at that point, like what their role was as journalists there, because they didn't want to go out and film him on the streets. Obviously, it is worst, but they also didn't know of like. They just didn't really know what their role was at that point. So they said, like, you need to get help yourself, and then we'll come. Yeah. But it just there was something about, obviously you saw that bond. You see the first time they meet and stuff, and there's like a bond forged on camera, I suppose. And just there was something about very touching about that relationship. And then at the end of the podcast, the documentary, I'm getting those two mixed up badly. But at the end, it comes up and tells you, the guy's in recovery and he's done a lot better, and that him and Louis are sort of still in touch. And it was just something about that episode. He speaks to a few different people, but there was just something about that. I think maybe because that guy was slightly younger, other people he spoke to on the documentary were a bit older and had quite chronic alcohol issues, but they were sort of almost functioning alcoholics, if you know what I mean.
If you've got to that age, I guess you're going to have to be like functioning if you're older.
Whereas this guy was very self-destructive, in a sort of a violent way almost. He was going out very reckless, and anything could happen to him. These other people were suffering from health issues because of alcohol, but it wasn't the sort of blind drunk in the streets falling about. But this young guy, for whatever reason, obviously, and Louis was very sort of on hand to help him.
Yeah, because like do you sort of interact? It's like David Attenborough when they're filming Planet Earth.
Yeah,
there's some times where they feel like they should step in. I think recently there was a famous one where the penguins from one of the episodes, the team actually stepped in to help these two penguins.
Oh, really?
But that's kind of seen as a huge no-no in this world, and it's the same with Louis doing these things. Like, do you interact in a way that's going to have an effect on the outcome of him, and how, like, you want to show the true nature of alcoholism, but if you interacting with him on any level other than just purely professional, will that then have an effect on the outcome of how he gets on with his life?
Yeah, and just I think on camera there was moments where like the guy was like physically reaching out to Louis and was like asking him for help on camera, and it's just it's hard to describe.
I've not seen that one.
Yeah, it's really hard to describe. It's like it was just something very sincere about it, and it was almost like Louis was out of his comfort zone again, where he wasn't quite although he throws himself into situations all the time where he's not in control, he always knows how to respond. Whereas this was,
I guess, it's the humanity of it. It's one human being to another, sort of asking for help, and that's hard to not feel something in that moment and be professional.
Yeah, but it's a good episode.
Yeah.
And David Attenborough hoodie as well.
Oh, do you?
Yeah.
Have you got a tattoo of him?
No, but the guy that did my Louis tattoo drew the design.
Is that a good
on the David Attenborough hoodie?
Marks out of 10. How would you say?
With the Louis Louis tattoo.
Yeah.
I mean, for me,
you'll have to show me off air.
I can't do it. In my heart, it's 10 out of 10.
Okay.
People always say it looks like Harry Potter.
Is that people trolling you, I guess?
I don't know. I think Adam Buxton actually said at the start of his latest episode with Louis, many of you listening might have a tattoo of Louis through and invented looks like Harry Potter. And I was fucking raging.
Yeah, he's like a sort of Dobby version of Harry Potter.
Yeah.
So we're pretty much at the end of the show. But to people that come to the show and are new on the podcast, I end the podcast with some questions. Just sort of off the top of your head, favorite book
ever,
or that you've read recently. I'm very open-ended like that. I can't commit to one or the other when I say favorite book.
Trainspotting, probably.
Right. Okay. Why?
Why? Because I've read it so many times.
Yeah.
And every time I read it, it's never. I don't think I've ever. I think it's one of the few books that I've never started and not finished.
Right. Okay.
I pick up books all the time. Will read them and not. I'll just read a bit if it's one of my favorite books, or I'll start a book a lot and just through. I won't read it. For instance, I started reading Pet Sematary by Stephen King recently, and every day I tell myself I should get back to reading it, but I just never seem to find the time.
Well,
I think every time I've read Trainspotting, I've started it and I've finished it. I've never
not finished it. Yeah, that's cool. But do you know what? That's so. It's such. I don't even know how to put it in terms of words. Like, I know people who are not from the UK that love that book.
Yeah,
you know, it's such a sort of pivotal book in their life to read that. And it's, as someone who's Scottish and seen the movie, not read the book, but it's like, why are so people love it so much? Like,
I don't know. The film is different. The film follows sort of one narrative that goes throughout the book, whereas the book's got lots of just like little mini stories and stuff that goes around it. There's just something very compassionate about the book, I think, and the way that Irvin Welsh writes his characters and stuff, they're just so larger than life, but very relatable. I think that that you just, it's very easy to read, and then also, but it taps into like much darker and deeper themes.
Okay. Favorite movie?
I would say Trainspotting normally, but we'll go with something else.
Fightclub.
No, I won't go Fightclub. I'll just give you a movie that I really like, because I don't want to talk about Trainspotting anymore. 500 Days of Summer. That's
Good movie.
The one that's springing to mind.
That is always one I try and convince people to watch, because they're like, on the face of it, people just think it's a rom-com, and I'm like, no, it's like the anti-rom-com.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Yeah, great movie.
Yeah, I really liked it.
And the dance scene is amazing. You know, halfway through when he gets he's going on a date and he dances through Central Park.
Oh right, yeah.
Not to give anything away.
Where he turns into Hansel. I'm giving it away. That's not enough to sell it to you then. Yeah. I think a lot of what I like about that film is the cinematography and just the little like the little quirks like that. Like the way he turns and his Hansel. He looks into. Sorry, I'm ruining it for everyone, but he turns and looks in a car mirror and it's Hansel looking back at him. There's little things like that I absolutely love about that film, and the split screens where it's like there's a scene where the screen splits and it says like expectation and reality and stuff.
Which is like life, you know.
Yeah,
it is. It's good to have sort of that. Kind of makes you think about how people perceive you, and how you perceive yourself in life sometimes. So favorite. Oh shit! Album. I've got my own questions.
Favorite album ever. Oh.
Doesn't have to be ever. Just like something that you've listened to recently that's floating your boat.
When you ask me favorite album, I'll just give you the first one that popped in my head. It would be The Midnight Organ Fight by Fighting Rabbit.
Right. Okay.
It was the first one that popped in my head.
Okay. Good. Fighting Rabbit are awesome.
Yeah.
It's
just
like,
I think there's so many like memories attached to that album as well. And then when they played the music hall in Aberdeen, I felt like almost everyone I knew was almost like in the room.
Right.
And I think that was the album. That was the breakthrough album, and just I've listened to it probably thousands of times.
There's lots of like connotations with that band as well because of, you know, the vocalist, what happened to him and what he was suffering with up until that point. So it is quite a loaded sort of band, I guess, for a lot of people.
Yeah, totally. But even before that, I think it's just a great album. Just loads of memories attached to it, and just that was the first one that popped in my head.
Okay. And the last question that always trips people up is your favorite quote.
My favorite quote.
Yeah.
Wow, that's a tough one. It's hard to remember quotes.
I know. If someone asked me, I'd be like,
it's really, I've got one for you, but it's really bleak, and I might paraphrase.
Okay.
And it's Sylvia Plath. I'm trying to remember it exactly. It's at the end of the bell jar of the book. She comes out of a psychiatric ward, and it's something like after in not too long a time, like the nurse says to her, all of this will feel like a bad dream, and she says like the quote is, "I laughed for those in the bell jar as dead and as stopped and as blank as a dead baby. Life itself is the bad dream."
Wow, that's
There you
very.
go. But you weren't expecting that way.
Anyway, man, where can people find you if they want to come listen to you and read your stuff?
So on Twitter, I'm still at 365 Aberdeen, which was the name of the project when I did the blog. I think it's the same on Facebook, and on Instagram it's MoodSwings AB, so MoodSwings and ABZ. And you'll get all the other links through there. But I think if you type down MoodSwings Libsyn or MoodSwings iTunes on Google, I'll be the first link that comes up.
Cool.
Hopefully, so you'll get the podcast there.
Yep. And I implore anyone that's listening to go and listen. It's an awesome podcast. And
we're going to do an episode right now. So
okay, well, yeah, back-to-back episodes. And thank you for coming on, man.
No worries.
And I'll see everyone next week. Peace.